your participant ID
and you may begin whenever you're ready.
Great, and Mike is here as well. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's October 19th full design review board meeting. We have a couple agenda items that we need to get through first before we get started. I'm pulling up Jane's email right now, but we have an approval of tonight's agenda first. Just to hear a motion.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right. The motion for the agenda passes. And then I have approval of meeting minutes from September 21st, September 28th, October 5th, and October 12th. Do I hear a motion to approve those meeting minutes?
Approve those meeting minutes.
All right. We have a motion from Karen. Do I hear a second? All right, I have a second from Bruce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion passes. All right. Right now I'm looking for any general member comments. These are comments that are not pertaining to any of the presentations we will hear tonight. If you have any, please raise your hand and staff will be on the lookout for those. Doesn't look like I see anything, so let's jump into the agenda. First off, we have a discussion item for that was a carryover from last full DRB because we took a little while, but this first one is Pathway Lighting by Stroik Lighting Design. Is there a representative from Stroik here who's going to be presenting this?
Can you all hear me?
We can. You're echoing a little bit.
Yeah, because I have my phone on because I can't get it. So Eric Mora and Chris Stroik are here from Stroik Lighting.
Okay. And they're going to do the presentation, Larry?
Larry, can you hear us?
Yeah, my phone has not been unmuted by the host.
Okay.
Finally, I was able to unmute. How's it going, guys?
Okay, good.
Good. How are you?
Good.
So you guys are presenting to us some lights, or a full design, kind of.
Yeah.
Chris,
Can I give a little context?
Uh-oh. Hello? There we go.
Chris, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. Great. Okay. Should we get started, or is there something else?
Nope. Okay. You guys take it away.
Great.
Can I give a brief introduction now?
Oh, sure, Larry. Good.
Yeah, I got my phone unmuted. Thank you. I don't know what's going on with my laptop. So I just want to give a brief introduction before Chris and Eric get into their presentation. As you may recall, there's been considerable discussion about pathway lighting over the past few years, really. And we've had funding to hire a lighting consultant to assist with this. It really came out from the Hunters Woods pathway lighting that had been approved by the DRB a few years ago, and then that approval lapsed. And so we agreed that we would hire a lighting consultant to look at lighting pathways, the pedestrian realm. And we went through an RFP and bidding process and so forth. And Stroik Lighting Design is the consultant we hired. They met with us on site, did some night walks and so forth. And they're going to be meeting with the committees as well, the Environmental Advisory Committee and the like. But we felt it was really important to get in front of the Design Review Board early in the process so that they can go over with you sort of their approach to evaluating the pathway lighting and then ultimately the lighting design that they will be recommending towards the end of this process. So this has been a long time coming. We're glad we got the ability to get on early in the agenda tonight, given what the length of the meeting last month. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Stroik and Eric Mora to go through the presentation, and then we'll leave some time for questions as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Larry. So we, needless to say, would love to. This is really the way we see this this evening is a way to sort of kick off with you what we hope to accomplish over the next several months. Hopefully, that will help lead to, essentially a kind of master plan or a kind of set of standards that Reston can embrace for primarily the pedestrian and other vehicular, bicycles and scooters and so forth. The system that you have in place for nighttime, sort of how you envision nighttime and how that integrates with all the different factors and different forces at play with any kind of lighting project. And I should mention, that I've been doing lighting design for about 25 years. Prior to that, I was in a monastery, and prior to that, I was an architect for about 3 or 4 years. But before all of that, and before I went to architecture school, I grew up in Reston. And so Reston's really my home away from home. I live in McLean, which is just down the street, but at the moment. But I should just mention that the pathways of Reston I hold incredibly dear to my sort of my sort of formation as a kid. I grew up. I moved there when I was 10. So spent all of my crazy years following that until college, getting into a lot of trouble in the pathways, but also really enjoying the ease of getting from place to place, particularly as someone that, could get into trouble and could get hurt if I was otherwise having to walk along the road. So anyway, it's great to be a part of this project because of that. As I say, it's the pathway system in Reston was just fantastic. Was always fantastic. And without further ado, I think we should maybe jump in. We're just going to sort of race through these images that are primarily just really talking about sort of the game plan that we have and sort of how we sort of see what we've been presented that Larry's given to us. And so both Eric and I will sort of tag team that as we go through this. So Eric, why don't you begin by talking about sort of the overview?
Yeah, so the overview, stroke lighting design overview. We utilize both cutting edge technology and practical experience. Stroke lighting design offers insight, ingenuity, and considers function, aesthetics, budget, green energy initiatives, cost effectiveness, and maintainability in the enterprise of lighting design. So we have a very collaborative, exploring, philosophy when it comes to lighting design. We want to pick the best tool for the job, and really develop lighting strategies that meet the needs of the community as a whole, and have a give and take of ideas, when we're going through this process. And we want to test those ideas. We're going to develop mock-ups for installation mock-ups for public observation and feedback. We're do a proof of concept design and installation. I think the Hunter's Woods section of pathway is our immediate, proof of concept installation location that we've been asked to do. We want to develop creative ways to tackle lighting areas, challenges throughout the Reston Woodland community. So we know that there's a lot of different types of, pathway zoning, and figure out the best way for lighting those specific areas. Both from both, and manage like all of the the concerns of the community, both ecologically and safety wise, and energy conservation. So scrutinizing, we're going to reviewing programs and budget and additional considerations. Budget's obviously a big issue with this kind of thing. Modeling, we'll do what we do is we make a lot of they're called lighting calculations, photometric modeling, and to come up with the right spacing, the right kind of lumen output per fixture or per lighting zone that's required. And so that'll be part of our process. Mock-ups via the software and temporary installations for review. Challenging, we want to think out of the box and addressing the illumination needs of the community. We're not married to maybe one type of light or another type of light. Maybe it's it could be a powered light or a solar light, or maybe like a reflector system, a guidance kind of situation, or so just trying to come up with the right solution for the right location, and then eventually refining, examining proof of concept mock-ups and installations for the review and application improvements for future installation designs.
Yeah, so when we look at Reston, there's obviously some immediate issues that you're all, many of you are familiar with, and there may be some other long-term issues. And what we sort of are looking to do here is really look at all of the areas within Reston, not only that are currently being used as pathways, but future pathways, and how those pathways might meet up to future development and other impacts to Reston. So we're really trying to look at this in a global way. So we're not only looking at the woodland, pathways, but we've got pathways there that are adjoining residences. They're adjoining commercial centers. They're adjoining schools, parks, underpasses that take you below roadways, certainly bridges, some pedestrian bridges, and then, of course, when you're walking along the street. And we're not necessarily suggesting that there is a lighting solution for each of these areas or not. What we're really trying to do is open this up in dialogue with you all to try to really kind of create a kind of a hierarchy, if you will, of a lighting system that ultimately is cohesive and is predictable and is comfortable and user friendly and certainly easy to maintain. So we can move to the next slide there. There's one thing I should also mention before we jump into this, there are, within pathways, the way we want to sort of look at this, we'd like to be able to even look at sort of some other issues, you might say peripheral issues to the objective of a pathway light, a light source, meaning that, and you all have this at the moment, you have these underpasses that are essentially tapestries for artwork. Maybe there's other opportunities within the pathway system. And this is not to suggest that the lighting specifically is to address it, but if there's an art program or there are other elements that occur along these pathways that might do two or three things, not just provide lighting for wayfinding and safety, but also it might help with identity issues. We're not necessarily going to solve that problem, but we want to sort of at least explore those in a very conceptual way as we go into this. I think you skipped over one slide. If you go back to that one.
Yeah, sorry about that. If we back up.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, so I mean, we've gathered the programmatic data from the stakeholders, all the different community groups that have interest in the pathway lighting system. We gather and confirm lighting criteria. Basically,
this is just to clarify. This is basically our approach that we're taking as we develop this design. These are kind of sort of bullet points of sort of what we do. I just wanted to. Sorry, Eric. I just wanted to make sure we understood that it's kind of an overview.
Yeah. Again, touching back on the budgetary parameters. I mean, we want to try to find the best ways to meet the budgetary fit within the budgetary constraints within any particular zone, or maybe find ways to increase a zone by a more cost-effective ways, and maybe make the budget stretch out in certain areas when possible. So that's obviously going to be a major concern of ours. We want to develop illumination strategies for all typical conditions. High volume areas, low volume areas, intersections. I think we touched upon this earlier, but all the different the lighting zones that occur. Power management is another big concern of ours. We want to be able to, come up with solutions that are obviously the best power management solutions. Power budget friendly, shall I say, for the application. And controls options there. There's a number of controllability options nowadays to save electricity, to minimize the ecological impact and community impact of bright lights being on all the time. We basically want the lights to be on when we need them to be on, and turn them off or dim them down at least when we don't need them. So present conceptual lighting design standards approach for stakeholders and approval. So we want to develop a set of standards for all these different areas, something that will kind of carry you through the next few decades of installation and usage. That you'll use for again, the different zoning, the different applications that might come up. We're going to test the designs with select mock-ups for specific applications. That's a big thing of ours is mocking up fixtures. We might put a mock-up up and leave it up for a couple of days and have people, walk it and give us their feedback. What do they think? How do they like it? We want to really open that up to the community. And then we want to verify the findings and revise our lighting design standards based on that feedback.
So again, program is an important thing to make sure we understand the scope. And we've certainly reviewed the report, the data that you all have prepared for us, various committees and so forth. Certainly each one of these stakeholders is an important sort of foundation for what we're doing here. So, I mean, in terms of program, we're assessing that, and it seems that we are tasked to really look at the entire, Reston Association sort of field of pathways, and really be able to comment on that. So we are reviewing all the documents. We have some feedback that we want to present to everyone. We've walked the site a couple of times, and not the 55 miles per se, but we've walked through some typical areas, and we have a pretty decent understanding. We're still looking at that, but all of those, all the rich data that has been developed over the past several years is what we're going to sort of marry up to, our experience and certain best practices, and certainly, what standards there are and exist in current thinking about pathway systems and lighting. So, and specifically, as you can see, there are Ies recommendations. The Ies is the Illuminating Engineering Society, North America. There's the budget that we talked about earlier. Lighting zones, as you all are probably quite familiar with, this dark sky, approach to primarily, reducing light pollution into the sky, and certainly there are factors of light pollution that even are consistent reflected light off of lighter colored surfaces, when they're not necessarily, the light source itself might be directed downward, but you might get lots of ambient upward reflected light. So thinking through those kinds of things, with even the choice of what the pavement material is made of in terms of its reflective quality, and certainly how that impacts adjoining vegetation. So I think that particular, the International Dark Sky Association, early on sort of adapted something that the IES developed, which is this idea of zoning. And I think we want to really try to explore that. You guys have already done that, I should say, not necessarily you guys, but the Pathway group certainly looked at that, and really tried to chart out in Reston different areas where you might consider it to be sort of a low ambient light zone, zone 1, that is lighting zone 1. Or you found certainly there's the sort of urban centers where you have, lighting zone 3 or 4. So the sort of nomenclature of LZ0 through LZ4 is what we want to really try to, look globally at Reston and be able to pinpoint where these different zones are, as a way to really give you the tools to think through the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, particularly with growth, with how Reston expands and so forth. Security is certainly something that in some ways was an impetus for pulling us into this discussion around the Hunters Woods area. And certainly there's other areas that in Reston. So we want people to feel safe. And so we want to, think through what security means and what's light's role in security. And then, sort of conversely, the environment, which is almost the opposite of what's the security sort of criteria element. Environment is saying, who cares about security? I'm tired of, seeing this terrible, pathway light that's, in my living room, and I have to block it out, or someone is mindful of certain kinds of animals that, live in the woods, and because of these pathway lights, they're disturbed. They can't live there. They have to move elsewhere. So thinking about environment, and I don't mean to sort of mock anyone by saying all those things. Those are valid, real issues that have to be addressed. So how does light impact the environment, and what can we do to control it? So it's really a control question. And then the multimodal mobility criteria. If you're on your bicycle late at night trying to get home, and you're going at 20 miles an hour down the path, and then somebody's all of a sudden there because you don't see them. Your light is burned out on your bicycle. What about that issue? And certainly we want, that gets into safety questions, and sort of certain orientation. And then there's design aesthetics. I mean, there's certainly the form of a light fixture, when it's in the landscape, or its integration with other furnishings, if you will, that occur along the pathway. Certainly, what is that expression? What is Reston's aesthetic? Is there a uniform aesthetic and something that's cohesive? So we want to look at that, and certainly maintenance is probably the first thing that I think Larry and his team pointed out to us. Is the challenge of going to the electric company, Dominion Power, and getting them to replace the burned out light bulb or the burned out ballast or whatever it is in this pole that it might take 3 or 4 weeks to get somebody out there just to look at it. So really thinking about maintenance and thinking about how to ensure that security, environment, all these other issues are safeguarded, and certainly affordable. And then finally, control, which is kind of an issue that relates to everything we just talked about. Control is kind of, some people think it's like the only thing in lighting nowadays, because there's so many different things you can do. But it also, can be baffling. And certainly we're not interested in creating a web of complexity. So we want to think about that in a reasonable way as we go forward.
And the controls, we're not necessarily even talking about it exclusively, turning the light on and off and dimming. We're also talking about optical controls, developing or, seeking out the right, reflector or, optical package, to really put the light where you want it on the path and not necessarily going out into people's houses or into the woods. And then also, again, kind of part of the optical package is glare control, so that it's not, obtrusive to the community's eyes that aren't actively walking the pathway.
I'm a little confused by this. I think slide 7 is supposed to be something else, Eric. Are we on the right? Is this the correct? Is this the same presentation that we, yeah, I don't know if this is the same one.
This is what we had from the last meeting. We just saved it. I'm happy to go back through.
Yeah, it is different.
I would say, given the time that
yeah, I mean, and from a DRB perspective, yeah, I mean, we understand what you guys are trying to achieve. It sounds like, you know, what I'd like to do is just see if anybody on the board has any questions for you guys. I know I have one question, and it kind of, I'll just lead with it. Are we, is this, Larry, is this strictly for RA lighting only, or have they been hired to help consult with kind of creating, because we have a lot of clusters that have aging infrastructure with lighting that's, you know, either owned by Dominion or it's owned by them, kind of some, is that part of this kind of study, or?
So I've got my, hold on a second. If I get my phone unmuted.
Doing it now, Larry, sorry.
Okay, I think that'll work a lot better.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, sorry about, I don't know, I got to resolve this issue here soon. The initial application for this is for RA pathways. It was our hope that if it's developed and it's robust enough that we could utilize it, and perhaps the DRB could utilize it for other applications as well, whether it's, you know, internal to a cluster or other neighborhoods. And also kind of what Eric and Chris were talking about, if we come up with a design that really meets the Restland aesthetic, we would like to push that out to the development community as well. That's not to say that they would accept it or anything like that, but again, to answer your question directly, it's specifically for RA pathways with the hope that it could be expanded depending on where we end up with it.
Okay. Yeah, because I think the big thing I have, you know, to me, and you know, pathway lighting can be, depending on what type of the pathway and where it is, or lighting for the underpasses, right, can be completely different than, let's say, a cluster lighting, where it's lighting up cars, you know, or, you know, parking lots versus just a pathway. So obviously, I guess what I was more trying to get that clarification. So I think that helps that this is strictly for kind of pathways and maybe for our facilities as well, like parks. And I mean, obviously we already have kind of a tennis court light standard that we've moved to. I mean, I don't know if it's really a standard, but it's kind of what we've been putting in everywhere. Are the facilities covered under this as well? Or is it just strictly for pathways?
To the extent that the pathways get to our facilities, which many do, okay, we would certainly do that. And if there's a way to extend that into the facility for those that are,
like, I'm thinking like Lake Newport, when you kind of walk through all the park and you're walking through Brown Chapel and all that kind of stuff, you're kind of within the facility and on the pathway at the same time. This would all kind of be integrated throughout all that.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, for those parks where it's warranted, you know, that park already has, you know, lighted ball field and night use facilities. There are other parks where we probably would not even consider it just because of the use of the daytime use only.
Okay. Does anybody else on the DRB have any questions for these guys with the kind of objectives that they're looking for during this standard creation? And Karen, did you have anything?
I was kind of wondering if there's a time frame for this, and I'd kind of like an idea of what you've already done leading up to this.
We're really just kicking it off.
Okay.
You know, getting the initial meetings with the DRB, and we're meeting with the Environmental Advisory Committee, their November meeting, which I think the first Tuesday in November.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so they've got some more field work to do as well. But our hope is that, you know, kind of through the early winter and whatnot, we get all we'll call it the paperwork done, so that in the spring, preferably before we get the leaves back on the trees, because I think that would be a helpful time to do the mock-up.
Yeah, and in many ways, what we've been doing thus far, just to kind of flesh that slightly, just to add to what Larry just said, we basically are just becoming familiar with what issues you've presented to us through the various committees, and we have a lot of ideas, but we really want to hear from and present and talk to each of you, each of the groups, before we charge at it and put together concepts. But our intent is to, as soon as we can, we want to put together a concept, an initial concept package that would be fleshed out and ultimately presented for buy-in by everybody, by the relevant stakeholders.
Any other questions, Karen?
Can you maybe summarize some of the key people that are groups rather that are involved, that you intend to be involved with?
Yes. You want me to take that one, Chris?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Yeah, initially it's the Design Review Board, Environmental Advisory Committee, Multimodal Transportation Advisory Committee, and then what we intend to do, the mock-up part is really going to be, and we intend to do that over Hunter's Woods area, to invite anybody in the community, obviously the stakeholders with whom we will have met, but anybody in the community come out and look at that and give us their input on, is this a good application? What needs to be tweaked? Those kinds of things. So again, we're kind of starting small to, as Eric said, to develop that, or Chris said, to develop that concept, and then to bring it more broadly. And obviously the RA board would be brought into that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have a comment? Mike B, Bruce, Dan?
No, sir. I've got one question.
Yeah.
So I assume right now you're just kind of presenting this to us to let us know that this is happening. Is there particular feedback you're going to want from the DRB either now or later? I mean, looking through this and hearing y'all speak, I mean, you've convinced me that you get the subtleties and there's lots of little things to look at, but is there a point when you start developing this and you start putting meat on the bones that you're going to want particular feedback from us on anything?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. We ultimately do want to get feedback. We're going to put together a concept package that will be meat on the bones. Hopefully, it's going to be good, tasty meat. And the intent behind that is really to lay out for you a series of ideas about how to improve your pathway lighting system in a really logical and cohesive manner that also will have budget implications and phasing implications. And so, once we kind of put that out there, we're going to really need to kind of have a back and forth with you to be able to refine it. It's because I see it getting revised essentially based on feedback from all of you. And that could be from a budgetary point of view, a phasing point of view. It might be a scope point of view. You might say, you might give us feedback that might suggest doing a completely different, looking at completely different avenues, as an example. Or you might look at, as an example, 3 different options that we put in front of you, and you might say that you really don't like one of those options, but you're interested in the other 2, and that kind of data we want to pull together, and then ultimately put together a mock-up that looks at least at 1 or 2 of these ideas or areas of the pedestrian pathways that would again be like a second level of feedback, and engagement. So we'd want to engage with you in that. hear what you have to say about what you see and refine it. And then ultimately we end up with something that is informed by all of you. I mean, we're not like some sort of artist that comes in and present you with a piece of art. We're really trying to listen to you and work with you and ultimately get to something that is reflective of what, what Reston wants to do. So I lean on you and others to give us the feedback to make this a really successful job.
All right, thank you.
Great, awesome. Well, if there's not anything else from the DRB, I appreciate it, and I'd say full speed ahead. Let's get some full maps done and keep chugging along for an actual plan, and that way we can start getting some updates done to these lightings.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And Michael, thank you for
Yep.
having us be on the agenda.
Yep. Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right. Moving on to, I believe, Tumble Tree, 2360 Tumble Tree Way. Got a big single family addition. Is a representative from Tumble Tree here, Katie Brown or Kenny Pyle?
Yes. Sorry, we had to unmute ourselves.
No, you're good.
I'm
Welcome.
Katie Brown. This is my husband, Kenny. Thank you.
Hi. Hello. Hello. So you guys got an exciting project here. So if you guys could just walk us through kind of what you're doing. Your guys' application is very thorough, but if you guys could kind of walk us through the main design features, and then we'll kind of go around the room. And I think there is maybe one affected party staff. Did they register to speak tonight?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, we actually have two.
Two? Okay. So what we'll do typically with affected parties is we'll have you guys present, and then we have the affected party speak, and then we'll come back to you guys to ask any questions, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, take it away.
Great. Thanks. I wanted to do a quick intro on who we are and why we are at this point right now. We moved to Reston in 2016, family of 3, almost 4. The week that COVID hit Northern Virginia, we added another member to our family. And then later that summer, I received a call from my mom who needed help getting out of an abusive situation in California. So she very suddenly came to move in with us. And as soon as she arrived, we quickly realized that our current footprint and living situation was not going to be sustainable long term. My mom has early stage Alzheimer's at this point, and as we've been taking care of her and talking to her doctors, realized that she's going to need to have a first floor bedroom and eventually some type of care coming in. So that, combined with our 3 young kids who are soon going to become adults, was what led us to this. My mom is currently living in a makeshift room in our basement, and it shares a wall and a powder room with our kids' playroom. And so due to that and to my mom's condition, that's where we're urgently trying to move this forward.
I just wanted to share that additionally, compounding our need for additional space, we have another immediate family member who has health needs that have previously required her to live with us for protracted periods. And unfortunately, we foresee that being a possibility again in our future. We really love our neighborhood. We're truly, genuinely passionate about being an active part of our community. We are wholly committed to being in Reston. We looked for a while thinking that we were going to move so that we could find more space, and we just kept coming back to this neighborhood, to this community, to this home, and just decided we wanted to make it our forever home. That's the why behind our project. So I can launch now into the nuts and bolts of what it is that we're actually doing. And I captured a lot of this in our project description, but I can go over it. The new home design improves the quality of materials as is requested by the design guidelines. And we really feel that it honors the architectural uniqueness that made us fall in love with Reston to begin with. We're really lucky today to have Mark Miller from Denny & Gardner, our design build team here. He's been incredibly patient and kind, and throughout this whole process, lending his expertise, and also Ben Karstoyu, our architect, is also here, so they'll be able to speak from a professional perspective at any point. So Ben of 358 Design Studio has paid particular attention to the overall massing of the house to ensure that even though the remodel is going to essentially double our current square footage, it's still going to be a complementary part of our neighborhood. Our current home is a split level with the lower and upper levels on the left side of the house and the one-story level on the right. And the upward expansion that we're planning is going to be confined to the current one-story portion. And the highest point of the roof will be in the center of the home so that the roof sight lines are aesthetically complementary to our neighbors' homes. The existing driveway, the garage location, the front entry location will remain unchanged. In terms of materials, the existing exterior facade right now is aluminum siding, aluminum soffit and fascia, and a 3-tab shingled roof. And the new exterior is going to upgrade the siding material to hardy cement siding with probably a boral trim material. Roofing is also going to be upgraded to an Owens Corning dimensional shingle in the Landmark series. We provided samples for all that stuff. All of these materials are going to offer long-term durability. They're consistent with other newly remodeled homes in Reston. The colors and samples that we are proposing are staying in the general, like kind of what our current aesthetic is, like very similar. Hardy has a bunch of standard colors, and we've chosen Navajo beige and Monterey taupe for the accent, and then white trim. As I mentioned, all the construction is going to be completed by Denny & Gardner. And let me just say that we went through quite a lot of research and talked to quite a number of firms. And we went with them for several reasons. Number one, Norm Gardner is from Reston. He lives in Reston. He knows the community. And we knew that he was going to really, honor this community in moving this project along. We let them know that it was really important to us. We emphasized repeatedly that we wanted the interruption to our neighborhood to be as minimal as possible, and they've really pledged to honor this request. They know that obviously this is, we're, undergoing this huge project because we want to stay here and because we like the people that, that surround us, and we want to keep it that way. Going back to the changes that we're making to the home, the left side of the home's footprint is not going to be altered. The addition for the right side of the home, and that's for Kenny's mom and potential future caregiver assistants who will be with her most likely for many hours of the day. That part will extend 16 feet toward the rear of the property, all while maintaining the same setback. There's also going to be a small bump out that's approximately halfway back the right side of the house that measures 2 feet 6 inches by 12 feet. So it's not really going to jut out any more than an existing flower bed that we have right there. The bump out serves two purposes, actually. Number one, it provides an architectural disguise between the old and the new parts of the house, and also prevents it from seeming just like this big lumpy box. Thank you to Ben for that. And number two, it provides for a 5-foot handicap radius in Sandy's bathroom. Many conversations with her neurologist, have led us to understand that she's at some point going to be in a wheelchair, and we just want to plan for that right now. The second portion of the lower addition is more or less centered on the existing house, and it measures 24 feet and 8 inches wide by 19 feet and 4.5 inches deep toward the rear of the property. Again, it's not exactly flush with Sandy's additions to prevent it from looking like this box that we lumped onto the back of it, and to just obviously enlarge our day-to-day living space. Part of the project obviously is not just increasing Sandy's sleeping space, but increasing our entire family's day-to-day living so that we can, enjoy this home for decades to come. Our 3 little bodies of our children are soon going to become 3 adult-sized bodies. As I mentioned, my family comes to stay quite frequently, and they stay for a long time. And we just had my dad visit, and we couldn't even sit in our dining room all together. I had to sit with the baby in the living room to feed her dinner. So we're at the point where we're really busting at the seams, and we're really excited about this project. We're just truly, genuinely grateful to live in Ruston, and we want to make this work for everyone.
Did you guys want to walk us through the kind of maybe the elevations kind of starting here and then just going over a couple quick glances of what we're looking at, and then we can hear from the affected parties, and then we can jump into a little bit more design details?
Sure, we can. Ben, I don't know if you want to go ahead and explain, the why behind the different elevations.
Sure. Well, basically, from the beginning, we're always concerned about the mass and the height, and thinking about ways to minimize the impact of that. And building above the existing 1-story section of the house made sense because we're reusing some of the footprint, in addition to adding to the back and to the front right a little bit. But that way, we're not affecting the site as much, and we're preserving more trees. And so we're building up over the 1-story portion. And then the trick is, we never wanted to basically just extrude or pop up a level and have vertical walls, all the way up for that. And so what we did is actually introduce this higher point in the middle and let that be the focus of the design and make that the prominent part of the roof line. And the idea is that it could help tie together each of the wings of the house, instead of having these separate, split level roof lines. Basically, the midpoint would bridge between the two, and then allow the sides of the house, like the left side is just the existing roof line and it's continuous in the same plane. So that's a minimal impact, towards the side of the the neighborhood. And then on the right side, we do have it sloping kind of a long roof line that goes from a high point down to the back closer to grade, instead of doing, merely just popping it up in 2 levels. So all along, we really thought about how to do this, and then also how to create this new house that has a new image. We like the existing materials and things that we're trying to recapture, but also, how do we create a new aesthetic with the forms of the house? The other thing is, some of the ways to break up the mass. We've introduced the dormers that give us the headroom that we need. We do need these rooms, these spaces in the front and back. So instead of merely popping it up vertically at that point, we break up that longer roof line with the dormer in the front and the back to help. And the side pop out is doing a similar job. Originally it was a little taller, it went all the way up, but it does, like Katie said, help break up the transition between the existing and the new, and also just kind of give it more of a scale on the side of the house. We are introducing some new materials and trying to repeat some of the existing. We do have the existing brick, and we're trying to have that tie together around the house, and then some of the horizontal lines serve that as well, like to bring it all the way around the house and have it disappear here, reappear on the other side. And what else? Well, I hope that gives you an introduction into the massing and, what got us to this place. I guess if there's any other questions.
No, I think that's fine to start. I think we'll get into the nitty gritty once we hear from the affected parties. And
Sure.
I know I have a couple questions, but I'll hold those back. So staff, do we have a list of the affected parties and who can go first? And just for the affected parties, you have 3 minutes to discuss your comments on the project, and then you will hopefully be finished up by then. If not, staff Mayor may mute you. So if you could, first person it looks like we're here from is Glenn Small.
Before I start, I have a question. Are you guys going to vote tonight to approve or disapprove this?
I believe it's on the agenda to be approved, correct? This isn't just conceptual approval, this is for full approval, right, staff?
We were looking for in concept only, depending on how you all felt about the application, the completeness of it.
Okay,
in concept only is what we were looking for tonight.
What does that mean?
It means that essentially there could be a couple things that are still outstanding that we would need to see, but I mean, staff, was there something in direct that you guys did not have information on, or?
It was a very complete application. It was just a very large application. We were just kind of leaning towards the DRB to make that decision, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, based on what I've reviewed, I think we could give it a full approval tonight. I think they've provided every information that I could possibly ask for. But so I definitely think it could be approved tonight. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't quite understand. What does in concept only mean?
Well, the difference is in concept means that there's still a couple more clarifications that we would want. But in concept, we basically are giving them the okay to kind of proceed to get a little bit more information if there was something. But in general, it's approved. A full approval would mean that they're good to go and go get their building permit and could get started, assuming that they have all their county approvals.
Okay, thank you. So I'll be brief. We live next door, and a lot of the houses in the neighborhood have had additions added to the back, so-called box on the back. That's very in character with the neighborhood. These houses were built in the early 1970s. This project is much different from that. As I think they stated, it's doubling the size of the house. We are very sympathetic to the situation of having additional family members and needing more space. We do have a lot of concerns about this, specifically because we live next door, but also generally because this sets a precedent for the neighborhood. If this is approved and this house is doubled in size, then that opens the door for every other house on this street and the next door street, French Horn, to be doubled in size, which we are concerned about. The specific things we're concerned about are privacy, view. This house, this proposal to increase the size of this house takes the roof line, I think, from 18 feet to 30 feet, which impacts our view, impacts the natural environment, and also privacy. So we have concerns about this. We will be surprised if it's approved because it will set a precedent, in my opinion, for the rest of the neighborhood. We'll make this neighborhood more like Vienna in Arlington, which you all know what has happened in those neighborhoods. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Staff, who do you have next?
Next, we have Harry and Valerie Lister.
Hi, thanks.
Hey.
Katie?
Hey, Harry. Hey, so just remind us 3 minutes for your statement and go ahead and get started.
Okay. Again, we're wholly sympathetic. We would love Kenny and Katie to stay there forever. We love Sandy. Sandy's wonderful. My concern in a nutshell is I just think the overall size of that house is going to be too big. It's going to overpower a very narrow lot. We've got about 22 plus feet between our houses currently. Part of that, when we get a bump out, it'll be down to right around 20 or just under 20 feet. So that is a concern as well. The other concern I have is the placement of the doors coming out of the basement will be, as I understand it, facing our house. You know, many of the houses that have a walk-up basement in our neighborhood, most of them have their doors around the back side of the house. that would be something I would love to be able for them to explore, perhaps doing. It's hard to argue with the aesthetics of what it's going to be a gorgeous house. My concern is it's going to be a little big for what I think is a narrow, deep lot. Building in the back, not a problem. Plenty of room back there. I think going up as high as it's going to be, I think is going to overpower a narrow lot.
Okay, great. Thank you, Harry. All right, so what I want to do now is go around the DRB members, see if there's any questions, comments, kind of clarifications that we may or may not need. I'll start with Dan. Do you have any questions? Dan, you there?
I think the biggest, this isn't so much a question. I think the biggest thing that stands out to me, and especially in comparison to the other homes around it, is the garage door. It's so large and it's of a completely different style. And at least to me personally, I'm not sure that it really complements the house that well. So I'm curious why, what about that design, I guess, speaks to the homeowners?
I'd have to check with Ben to see if the size is changing. I think the overall garage is staying at 2-car garage. It's not expanding that space. As far as the aesthetic, it was.
We're not married to the aesthetic of the garage door.
Suggestions.
Yeah. Ben, can you speak to whether or not it's getting bigger?
Yeah, I
didn't think the garage door was getting bigger.
The image itself. I mean, this image. It does look a little distorted to me. I think it might help at the end of the file. I think there's an actual picture of the door that we chose. The windows are a little tighter. I mean, that is a little bit more accurate in terms of the proportion, and it's scalable. It's divided into 4 sections. So I think it fits into the aesthetic in terms of, if it looks a little bit, it shares qualities with Craftsman style. It has a simple kind of look, but a little bit refined, and it's elegant.
So I don't necessarily dislike the door itself. I guess I can see where the neighbors are coming from partly.
Yeah.
Regarding the overall look of the house, and someone mentioned it looking like Vienna. This is definitely, I think, a bit different than what's around it when you bring in the detailing up in the gables, changing the style of the door. I think it may just be trying to modernize it a bit too much personally. The height does not particularly bother me. I think especially, the road's sloping downhill, but to the right of that, there's a 2-story house. I don't think that this will be that much larger than it looking just straight on it from the street. But I do think some of the details may make it stand out more than if we went a little bit simpler than that would.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my 2 cents for now, Michael.
Okay, thank you. Mike B, did you have anything?
In terms of the site plan, just wanted a clarification that there's not going to be any changes to site grades. I see in, I guess, slide 15, staff, they had some topo on there. Just want it over to the right on the there she is. Just want to make sure we're not doing any significant grading back there. I know there was one tree that was coming out, but just looking for a clarification on that.
There's no changes to no changes to the grading. In fact, all of those trees that are numbered and in green are existing and remaining.
Terrific. That's it for me right now, Mike.
All right. Jim, did you have anything?
Yeah. Do you guys have a picture of what's on the left side of the house? Like what's next to the lot on the left?
Yeah, I think that's probably as close as we'll get.
No.
Go Go back. One more. There.
There. That might be as good as we have right now. There's some shrubs.
Couple big trees.
Some big trees. Toward the rear of the lot, there's some youngish privacy trees that Kim and Glenn planted. I'm not sure if that's what you were referencing.
No, I'm the house next door. I just wanted to see the height and the massing of what that looks like.
I believe the house next door, I think, is the exact same design as this house, but basically mirrored of the the existing. It has the split level on the right, or in that instance, split level on the right, and then it's a ranch on the left. Whereas theirs has the split level on the left, and then ranch on the right.
Okay. No, it looks like the massing actually looked pretty nice. The house on the right side is a bit taller, so. Mm-hmm.
Anything else, Jim? Or that was it? That was all you're trying to clarify?
No, that's it for me.
Okay. Bruce, did you have anything?
Yeah, well, I think the so-called elephant in this room is the massing. And I have to confess, my first reaction was that it had the potential to overwhelm the homes immediately around it. And then the more I've looked at it tonight, understanding that essentially in overall height, it's coming up perhaps 12 feet higher than the current peak there. If we're talking, we said 18 and it was, and now it's 30. And I did appreciate the observation that that's done in a way that's away from the other two homes. And I also, looking at those pictures, understand that the home on the right is the elevation is higher to begin with. So the real question, I think this is where Jim is coming from as well, is it seemed to have more potential impact to the home on the left. I mean, just from a massing perspective. But yeah. I have come to see it as, from my point of view, from a massing point of view, acceptable. As we've heard it discussed tonight, and as we've looked more at the pictures. So that's all I have.
Okay. Karen?
Okay. Well, I have appreciation for all of the work that's gone into this and to the reasons for it. And I'm comfortable with all of that. However, I feel that it's really feels like it's shoehorned in to a small space. And I'm looking at the two sides, the way they relate to the property line, let's say. The projections on the side where on the right side, I feel, I can't imagine how they're going to get, I can't even imagine how they're going to build it without being without ending up affecting the neighbors' properties. And I feel that I went through the list of how they were going to save all the trees on the left side. And there's such a dependence on the root pruning. And we're talking about root pruning 24-inch oak trees. And I don't know how that really works. So I feel that it's going to impact the neighbors on both sides because it is just as close as it can possibly be. And just the fact of trying to get machinery, big, very large pieces of equipment. I just don't see how that, where does that go? And, you know, they've got to excavate underneath the existing house to redo the plumbing and the piping that's under there. And where does that, how do you do that? So I'm just kind of flummoxed as to how you would actually build this without making some huge impact on both sides of the proposal. So anyway, I think it needs more work somehow or something. I just don't see how it fits in there in a comfortable way.
Okay. I got a couple questions, just kind of clarifications. I think overall the design, I think is obviously we've heard the need for why it is what it is, and I think personally it's somewhat close. I think it's just a little bit of tweaking that needs to happen, but I'm hoping some of these answers I get can help me with that. So the overall height of the structure is what? It was thrown out by an affected party that it's 31 feet, but I don't actually see an elevation height on the drawings, and maybe I'm just missing it. But what is the official height? I'd like to know what the height on the left-hand side is, kind of that main gable in the middle, and then the height on the right-hand side, where the roof is turned 90 degrees there.
I could tell you, on the right-hand side, it's 29 from grade.
29. Okay.
I guess from grade on the left to the highest peak is 32.
Now the grade on the left significantly slopes down. What is it from like the middle, like from the porch? Like if you're looking just at the front,
from the porch,
front porch grade.
Level, it's 31.6.
31.6. Okay. So do we happen to know how tall that house is to the right? I mean, that house is a 2-story to the right, and that to me is at least, probably pretty close to 29, because they're obviously just a regular 2-story house, whereas this is you just have the rancher now, so it makes it, it appears, the house is getting so much bigger, but really the house next to it's probably pretty close in size.
Yeah, and again, like the 2D elevations are a little deceptive as well. It looks like a mass, a large mass, but the roof line is receding for the most, on the right side. So it's really that central peak that, again, is like positioned away from the sides. So that highest point is less visible.
So you see how they kind of step back the house on the right hand side. Obviously, the house only extends over one of the of the 2-car garage. Is there a way that this design on the second floor can be stepped back, even if it's only 2 feet or so? Because basically, we're kind of we're so tight. Their setback from their line is probably closer to 18 feet. I think is kind of what the plat's showing, whereas your guys is like 9.5 or something. If I'm reading it all correctly. So obviously this is going to appear much taller. Is there a way almost for that second story that's going over the garage to kind of step it back, maybe 2-3 feet? Do you have that kind of room and the flexibility in the floor plan? We weren't given a second floor plan, so I don't really know what's going on up there.
Okay.
For that flexibility, is that possible, or is that it just wouldn't work programmatically?
Let me take a look real quick.
I'm assuming it's probably a bedroom up there or something.
Yeah, we have a guest suite position kind of in a central location, access to the stairs, and then to the right there's the owner bath, owner suite. It's a little tight because of the headroom, and it's it's been worked out so that most of the pitches, all of the pitches are consistent. But to do that, you might have noticed to 7, so it's kind of an odd pitch, but it worked out in a way that I got the headroom in, the appropriate headroom in the owner bath to work out with a shower. And stepping it back, I'm not sure if it works, right off the bat, but in the elevation view, I think it's nice to have that.
Could take a little bit of a stab at it. Where it works the best is in the bedroom in the center, where it really pinches the design is on the bathroom on the front and on the sitting room on the back.
Right.
Okay. I just was, hoping, because that way it could kind of maybe break up that big face that you're going to end up on that right hand side, or supposed bigger face. But that's all I was trying to do. But if it's not feasible, then maybe we can, I think it'd be helpful to show, what the height of the house next door is, so they kind of get an idea. Because on paper, sometimes that this can be, it can look substantially bigger than what it really is. And so I think that's part of the concerns of the affected parties.
We did an Eagle View report from that, which gets a satellite height of the roof next door. And from what we understand, the driveway to driveway, it's about a 4-foot difference in elevation. So the house to the right starts about 4 feet higher, and the roof is 26 feet.
26 feet from grade.
Right. So we're looking at 30 feet to the ridge.
So they're roughly going to look about the same across
the. When it's all said and done, they'll be about even.
Okay. And that's to the midpoint of our house, right? The highest peak, not the closest peak to them.
Right. The closest peak to them, you said, was about 29.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My second question was the same on the left. Now going to the left side, the chimney width. I know you guys are just kind of extending this existing chimney, but it just almost seems out of proportion in size now to the house. And maybe it's just the elevation. But I don't know. It just was looking now. It's looking very dinky by the time you extend it. Whatever you have to do to meet the code minimum, so we keep getting the good draft up there. It just feels like it's getting kind of small. I think it's slide 28, Steph. Is there any way I know you guys are extending it up. Is there any way to kind of maybe just beef it up a little bit up until maybe, I guess you guys are trying to keep it under the water, keep it on the brick there. I don't know, just something to me just makes it look very, I don't know, unproportional. If you scroll down there, Steph, to that part, it just, the taller it gets, it just looks a little, I don't know, dinky. Is my technical design term for it. Is there any way to maybe widen up that bottom, and maybe it looks like before that drip over board that you have for the water table, maybe we could, bring that same width on the one side to make it a little beefier, on the right, just to give it that extra foot and a half or so to help maybe, not appear to be so tall and slender.
And Mark, we obviously defer to you. We don't know much about dinky or not dinky fireplaces.
From a construction point of view, it's making it bigger is not the problem. If you ask us to make it smaller, then we're into fluing concerns. But it could get bigger. We didn't have a plan to make the footprint bigger, but it seems like the existing footprint could extend higher, and then it could start to taper as it gets close to that window.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. I'm not saying take it wider all the way up, just on the base part of it.
I mean,
I don't know. It could just be a proportion thing again. It just looks very tall and skinny, and I just don't want it to end up looking like almost like an afterthought. I'm assuming it's a wood burning fireplace that's remaining in the lower level there.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think maybe just, looking at that would be helpful. My other comment was on the same elevation. Did you guys plan on doing any exterior lighting on this deck? There was exterior lights I saw on the front of the house, but on the left-hand side here, I'm assuming because these are the doors that are going to be opening up to the deck that you guys would have some lighting. So just curious, is it the same light fixture, and how many would you guys be doing?
I think the plan shows for the same light fixture on either side of the door.
Yeah,
So,
and would you do one by this old existing man door as well? That's on the bottom of the existing house, if you want to call it.
Here, Katie and Kenny, is there might be a light already there? Is there?
There is a light. Yes.
So if you guys could just show those on the plan, that would be helpful, or the elevation, whichever one.
Yeah, we had an electric lighting plan. They are on that one. It didn't.
Which sheet is that?
Elevation. It might not have made it into this set, but yeah, I mean, we thought about it, and yeah, we can add that to the elevation, no problem.
Because are you guys doing any other type of lighting? Any other motion sensor, floodlights or anything like that under the eaves?
We don't have any.
It's not in the current plan.
We don't have. We don't have them now. We don't have plans to have them.
There may be like just landscaping type lighting, like the kind that you buy at Home Depot and stick on little stakes into the grass. But no. Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure. And then the other thing was the basement stairs on the rear elevation. I do kind of see the concern of the affected party, where that's, now all of a sudden those stairs are now encroaching even farther onto their property. Is there any way to put those along the rear, or they have to go on the side?
Yeah, we can certainly look at alternatives. That's something where we do have some flexibility with that, and we could.
We had actually talked about that prior to this meeting, actually.
Yeah.
Because is there a basement now going under just the addition? Because the current house, or does the ranch currently have even a basement that's lower than the split level side on the left?
No.
There's a crawl space under that, and we lowered under the addition, we lowered the floor line so that it creates a storage basement area. And we had the stairs in different locations at different times, but I think it's easily adaptable, maybe potentially on the rear of that same addition.
So is that the only entrance to that area, or is there an interior staircase as well?
There's an interior staircase from the garage leading down to it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see that now. Okay, that's where that's going. Okay.
Yeah. The purpose of that basement is storage, so those are just to get large pieces in, maybe furniture or something.
Okay. I guess that led to my next question. Is I wanted to make sure that wasn't like I didn't see a overall site plan kind of with any additional walkways or anything along the side. So you guys aren't planning on creating a wraparound sidewalk that goes all the way to the back or anything, from what I can tell.
Oh, we purposely didn't create any kind of egress from Sandy's room, just for her safety.
Okay. And my last question is on the color selection. How close is that to your existing house color? Because it seems like it's close.
It's pretty close. I think our current house may have a little bit more of a yellow undertone.
It might be a little different if we power washed it too.
Yes, yeah.
So you guys though have compared the samples to your brick and feel like it's a good complement to the existing brick that you're matching.
We wanted to go with something that was like closer to like a cream color, and then working with the designer from Denny and Gardner, she helped select the I think it's called Monterey taupe for like the accent.
Those colors are they're a standard hardy color, so we tried to use a pre-finished hardy because it gets another 10 years of life out of the finish, and that's the closest pre-finished hardy color to the existing. So yes, we did try to get close to the existing.
Okay, great. And I think I had one more question for the elevation doesn't really show it, and maybe you're just going to keep it how it is now. But for the front entrance walkway, I think the intent obviously is probably to get a flush transition with no sill at that door, and have some sort of ramp or something to get up to the front porch. Is that the plan?
The existing actually is in good shape.
Okay.
It shows fairly well in the pictures of the existing.
I just couldn't tell. The pictures are so far away.
Yeah, it's actually in good shape, and it is stone.
Well, right now the door though sits up about 8 inches. So I'm assuming this new porch that you're pouring is going to be 8. You're going to want a flush transition in. I'm assuming. Well, I could be wrong. I just assumed it was going to universal design, where you would have if someone was in a wheelchair, they could just be rolled right in from the driveway.
No, the access for my mom will be through the garage.
Oh, okay. There's a ramp.
The garage goes straight into her room.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought I saw more steps in there, but that might have been just that staircase down. Okay, never mind. Ignore that comment then. Okay. Well, does anybody else have any other kind of comments, clarifications that they were looking to get?
I just had one. Go ahead. Sorry.
Karen asked the question about, the practical question about how is this going to be constructed, and we didn't really ask. So I just wanted to get some understanding of what you have in mind to address the kind of concerns that Karen was identifying.
I guess that would fall into my court. So there is on the site plan, there's a limit of what's called a limit of disturbance, which is put on the plan by the civil engineer. We have to stay inside of that limit of disturbance, so we can't just go into the backyard as we see fit. We need to stay tight to the house. In residential, particularly in remodeling, the type of equipment we use is not that large. So a mini excavator to get around back and a bobcat to get around back, they actually only have a 5-foot wide track width. And so that'll get around the side of the house just fine. The existing plumbing that's inside the house is, underneath the house is undisturbed. So really what we're talking about is the ability to get around the side of the house and to the back. But that dotted line that's up on the screen now, the dark dotted line, that's the limited disturbance, and we can't go beyond that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Apropos of what we just talked about, there's a lot of trees saved on the left side down by the beginning of the property. And whatever goes to the backyard or whatever goes to some of these areas has to go over top of those trees. And I don't really trust some of the explanations as to how they're going to save all of the trees. But I just think that I don't know how you do that. Even I don't care how small a piece of equipment it is going around that side, but you're going to be compacting and basically running over these trees that you say.
I understand the concern. I mean, I have a lot of trees in my yard, and I want to keep them too. But on this plan, where the driveway is, where that's labeled CE, that's for construction entrance. So we are required to use that as our method of in and out for the machinery. And the dotted line to the left doesn't go near those trees. So we're actually being told by the arborist that we can't drive over those trees. So there is no, the dotted line also has a TP on it, which stands for tree protection. So there's a chain link fence that's installed with a silt fence in front of it. And that keeps workers from even walking over in that area. So our means for getting around the house is not through those trees.
Okay, I thought you had mentioned that. The only other thing is it kind of bothers me that the garage, the new face of the garage is quite a bit out from where it is now, and which brings the slope of that roof closer. And looking at the site, I kind of it seemed to me that projection was uncomfortable anyway.
The garage does come out. I don't know exactly how much, but it mirrors the amount that it comes out on the, I guess you're saying the split level side. So just kind of, it was done to try to mirror that look. So it comes out, but Ben, do you know exactly how much it comes out?
Yeah, it comes out 10 feet 6.
It says 8 feet on the plan.
Let me take a look.
8 feet and change.
No, like from the existing, how much farther does it come out from where the garage currently is?
That's the figure that I thought.
Oh, okay. Wait a second. Yeah, it's
8
actually,
foot. It's 8 foot 5 inches.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, it's 8 foot 5. Yep.
And it does slightly come out past the current split level face. I mean, by about 2 feet, it looks like.
Yeah, exactly. 2 feet. Yeah, it's brought out, like Kenny was saying, to mirror the other side and to look, to stretch out as if two arms coming from the center, but it's not exact, but it does help balance the whole composition, I think.
For the just one follow-up question that I have, or two things really. So for the HVAC, you guys are planning to tackle the whole house with these with the mini splits?
With ducted mini splits. So
concealed VRF system basically, let's just say.
Right. So that
but there's only one, so you only have this one set of equipment location that'll be the double stack style.
Right.
These are nice and quiet, obviously. So I'm not too worried about the noise. I think the location is fine. I just wanted to make sure that was all that was going to be servicing the entire house, because obviously it's getting significantly bigger. So that'll be needed. And then my second follow-up question is, where do you guys stand with permitting and whatnot? Have you guys started with Fairfax County at all yet? Or, what if we did do, let's say, a concept approval tonight, that we maybe ask for a couple clarifications on some of these things, a little bit of tweaks. Is that going to, derail your guys' whole time schedule?
Yeah, we think the grading plan is approved, but it needs, there's a couple of follow-up requests in terms of paperwork, but in principle, it's approved. The building plan is almost approved. We did our third round of comments. So we are expecting a building permit in a week or so.
Okay. Does anybody want to take a stab at a motion?
Michael, I would move to approve in concept, and then I'm going to get some help here in terms of the number of things that we've talked about here. One was with respect to consider the comments that were made tonight regarding the chimney and the garage door. the and potentially the setback, not the setback,
the basement stairs.
Basement stairs, and then finally the potential on the garage. The garage you had mentioned the potential of stepping back on the right side, 2 feet. That they
if it was feasible with the floor plan upstairs.
Feasible with the floor plan, right?
Yeah. I mean, if it's not, it's not. But I think we can work with what they have.
Those were the things that we would hope they'd come back with some after looking at and considering the comments that we've made on those items. So those are the ones that listening overall, I thought.
And then also the additional lighting on the rear, where exactly that's going, existing and new lighting.
More clarification on the lighting in the rear.
Yeah.
On the elevations.
Yeah.
And you want the, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I just was going to restate what your
go right ahead. Please do. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So the motion is that we've proven concept, with basically means you guys are kind of good to keep moving full speed ahead, just with a couple of these minor things that we're looking for, with clarification on maybe an updated chimney design for the bottom kind of portion of it to kind of help thicken it up a little bit higher up. Look at the potential of the garage step back of 2 feet if it's feasible on the right elevation there. Look at the rear lighting, or I guess it's really the left side lighting, just kind of show where that exact lighting is going. And then the relocation, I think this is needed is to relocate the stairs that are on the going down to the storage room on the exterior, and even seeing if they're absolutely even necessary. I mean, if you have the staircase from the garage, I'm not sure if it's more of a code thing that they're making you guys put those in. But I mean, if it's just to a storage room, maybe you can get away without even having them. Would be maybe even better. So those are the comments. That's the motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, well, we have a second from Jim. All right, so is there any further discussion about the motion?
I do have one question for the board. So I mentioned a couple design things. It doesn't seem like anyone else particularly had a problem with it, but I just wanted to put it out there just to confirm. So everyone's comfortable with the shingles on the side and the gables and those as far as design elements for this house in this area.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a single family detached area. If you go up and down the street, I mean, there was a consistent couple models of houses built, but they all kind of have different facades and different types of cladding. So I'm not too worried about it. I personally like the changing of the cladding to make it, give a little bit more visual interest on when you have these slightly larger faces of elevation.
All right.
Can I ask one question, please? Just logistically, what does a follow-up presentation look like?
It basically just is same meeting, next month that would, you guys have a couple of those clarifications that we asked for kind of addressed, and then you guys would ask for full approval at that point. Then you guys, assuming by then, would have your building permit as well and would be able to get going. So there's a motion, there's a second. Further discussion. Karen, you had something?
I just wondered, is there clarity about the projection for the wheelchair? Was it just the stair going down that needed to be moved or relocated, or in the So I didn't know where we wound up with the projection for the wheelchair.
You're talking about in that bathroom on the first level there behind the garage?
Yes.
I personally don't have a problem with it. I think it gives it, just gives that side a little bit of visual interest. I don't think I don't know. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't throw me off visually with the design of the house.
Oh, give me some. We could share it.
Anybody else have any comments about any further discussion on the motion?
No.
All right, so we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Karen's abstaining.
I was muted. I was against.
Dan is against. Okay, hold on. So let me just go around and take a vote. So Bruce, you vote yes or no?
Yes.
All right. Mike B?
Yes.
Dan?
No.
Karen is abstaining. Jim, yes or no?
Yes.
And then I'm also voting yes. So motion will pass 4-1-1. All right, so we'll see you guys next month with those couple clarifications that we're looking for. Great, thank you. All right, moving on to Purple Sage cluster. They got a couple tree removals. All right, is a representative from Purple Sage here?
Colleen is here, I believe.
Great. And staff, I believe we have, I think there's affected parties on this one, correct, as well?
Right, we had 4, however, 2 are not showing up. So I believe we just have Jim and Bob.
Okay. All right. Is Colleen on and wants to walk us through? So it looks like we're just reviewing 2 trees that we deferred from basically last month's meeting. And was this just a deferral because I can't remember. Did we run out of time on this one?
No, we were just to give allow the applicant the opportunity to be present for the review.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'm a school. So I teach in DC public schools, and I was sick, and so I was not able to come to the meeting.
Great, no worries. So let us know what you're doing here. So it looks like this is just about two trees. Is that correct?
Two trees, a pine tree and an oak tree.
And one of them's already gone, right?
And one of them is already gone, correct. That one is still present. That one is gone.
Yeah, from what I'm seeing is that you have an arborist statement that basically says one was deceased and one is declining and is, I mean, obviously that pine tree is dead right there.
Yeah, that was deader than dead than dead. It was dead.
Okay.
And it was a fall hazard.
All right, so we're reviewing this. So do you have anything to talk about the white oak? And there it is shown dead as well. Okay. So do you have anything else other than that, or is what we can hear from the affected party, then we can ask any other questions that may come up?
Yeah, no, I mean, like we're looking for retro approval of the large pine tree, and then we're looking for approval of the removal of this oak tree.
Now, are you guys proposing to put anything back where this oak tree is? If it's a pretty prominent island area there in your cluster.
Yeah, so that is one of the original plan trees. So there is a new quote that's going to be coming out from it. We have not received it yet, but there is definitely the plan to plant something in its place.
Okay. All right. So do we have the affected party, Bob or Jim?
Yeah, good afternoon, Michael and board. Can y'all hear me? This is Bob.
Hey, Bob, good to hear from you again. Just I know you know this, but just a reminder, 3 minutes to state your affected partiness. So you're welcome to start whenever you want.
Okay, thanks guys. I'm fully behind removing these trees. They're dead as dead as dead. The concern that I have is when referring to the email, one at Conspiracy on September 2nd, said noted was their community notification prior to the removal. Actually, that did not take place. So just going forward, could y'all please pay closer attention to this. Purple Sage is not, the board is not, doesn't have an effective way of notifying the entire community, so we did not know about this. Also, the approval, again, another process issue. None of this was done in an open meeting or POA requirements. So two things. The third thing, that white oak and several other trees in the neighborhood. I know one thing that you had requested that Purple Sage do is come out with an overall tree maintenance plan. There are several trees in the neighborhood that have severe pest infestations, various types of pests that really need to be looked at by an arborist. The sooner the better. And the third and my last comment is just sending a message to our board, specifically Colleen Beckett, that just because there's RA DRB approval doesn't mean that she has the authority to go ahead and spend association money without voting on it and approving it with an entire board meeting. And even though that she wasn't able to make the last month's meeting, we do have 3 other board members who participated. Those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Is Jim on as well? Do you want to speak?
We took our 180 seconds and shared it. Jim's
okay.
Jim did what I said, so it's fine.
Okay, you can have a couple more seconds if you want to.
No, that's all right. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a condition here. Obviously, that there's 2 trees. One is gone. They're dying. They're dead. But it's more sounds like it's about the process within the community. So, Colleen, are you still on, or did you? I don't see she's on mute now. I think
I'm here.
Great. So obviously it looks like, you guys have a internal issue in your cluster that you guys are trying to work on a better notification system for your cluster to kind of let people know of this tree work happening and other stuff.
We are.
Okay, great. Because I know like Blade Runners, they do a lot of work in Reston. I know they do, some tree work as well. So, I think normally they're pretty good and on schedule. So I think it's not too much to ask to obviously make sure your cluster is getting notified. Even if the tree's dead, is always helpful just to let people know what's happening. I think in regards to this application, I think the white pine, I'm not too worried about, requiring a replacement in that area. I think it's already densely, I don't think a new younger tree would maybe do as well there, but I do definitely think the white oak area, I definitely think that would be a prime area to obviously grind out that stump and prepare it for a new tree, or maybe even 2 new trees if that island could support it. Did the arborist make any recommendations on tree replacements?
Not as yet. We are waiting for a new quote.
And when you're saying a quote, does that come from the arborist or
from the company? And he's the arborist as well.
Okay. Does anyone on the board have any comments about these?
No.
Dan, Mike, anybody? No. So what I'll do is I'll motion to approve to remove the trees and require that the cluster plant a minimum of 1 new large format tree, which basically is going to grow to be substantial size in that same area where this oak was, and then 1 kind of ornamental tree, either in the same area or somewhere else in the cluster. and we need to be presented with a plan within the next, let's say, 60 days. And then we can hopefully try to get the tree in by springtime. But we need the plan within 60 days from this approval of the removal.
Michael, I just want to bring to your attention that they were here last month and they are required to present a tree replacement plan and a management plan within 60 days of October 5th. Or the 20, I guess, 5th.
60 days of which day?
Let's see, from October 5th. They were just here.
Oh, from October 5th. Okay.
They were here on September 28th, right?
Okay, so my same thing. So by December 5th, it sounds like we need to have something roughly December 5th or 4th, whatever 60 days is from the 5th of October. So that'll be what my motion is.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right, great. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the last item on the agenda. Whitney Park Center Cluster. Is there a representative here from there?
Sorry, this is Jimmy Sayas. I'm one of the directors of the board, and I believe our HOA manager, Kathy Gately, should be on as well.
Great. So I think you guys have some. There you are, Kathy. All right. So I think you guys had some lights that were approved.
And I believe Valerie Quinn is also on. She is board president.
Yes, I'm trying to get, can you hear me? I'm trying to get video started, but it's not working, but you can hear me.
We can hear you, yes.
Okay.
So if you guys want to walk us through what the issue is, it sounds like the existing lights. I know I went out there yesterday. I see there's an issue. I mean, it's pretty clear. So walk us through what it is and kind of how we can hopefully help you guys.
Kathy, you want to maybe get it started?
Okay.
What do you think?
This proposal was submitted, actually it was prior to our management, but it was submitted in let's see when the first date. It was submitted in October of 2019 with all the lighting schematic, the lighting instructions, the kelvins per light, the design schematics, the map, the pictures, the notifications of everybody surrounding. And the Reston Association approved the submittal. Apparently this year, Reston received one complaint from a homeowner taking over an estate house. The homeowner did not complain to the board or to us. And Reston notified us that they needed us to resubmit. They stated one homeowner had complained that there was a light pole that was too bright. I requested the lighting study or schematic that Reston had obtained to measure the light source because they were questioning the lumens that were in there in the lights. We checked with the lighting design and installation company, and all the lumens and sorry if I'm not using all the correct terminology, I'm not a light specialist. They were all as they were submitted, in 2019, along with the lighting schematic.
Michael, I would just like to add that the complainant is on the call, and it would be up to the DRB if you would like her to let her speak. She did not submit an AP statement, but I'm just going to open that up. It's up to you all.
Yeah, I mean, as you guys know, I said I was trying to figure out why this was even on our agenda tonight. So I guess I'd like to hear, what the complaint is. And I went out there, I saw the lights. I personally think they're too tall for a residential setting, but at the end of the day, we did approve them. And I went back and listened to the approval earlier today, and I have some comments on it. But anyways, yeah, I'd like to hear from her. That's fine. If she wants to have a 3-minute statement.
We can unmute Jeanette. That would be great. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Jeanette. Yep. Hey, Jeanette.
Can you hear me?
Hey, yep, I can hear you.
Good.
So
yeah, our
3 minutes.
as you know, are just that the lights are too bright for people to sleep. Some complaints about working, and the shields are in such directions that it leaves a lot of our areas in the dark. So there's a safety concern as well there.
Okay. Anything else?
No, it's too much of a glare and too much hitting you when you drive in, too much light when you're directly in front of them, or for houses across directly from them, or at an angle. People aren't able to sleep. We've had to put things in our windows, behind our curtains. I think that sums it up.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jeanette.
Thank you.
So staff, can you guys clarify? So this is my first time we've had this happen over the last 3 or 4 years I've been on the board. Is this the protocol? So if there is a complaint, it has to come back as a whole new application, or there's got to be. I guess why is this back at the board? I guess is more my question.
If I could chime in on this one,
yeah, that'd be great.
Jane, if you could go back to the approval letter. The reason why this is before the DRB is because of the approval letter language. Because of the complaint, this was submitted and is anticipated to be reviewed by the Covenants Committee, but the condition would be that ultimately the DRB is the arbiter of deciding whether or not the light fixtures are sufficient and in compliance with the approval letter or not. And so this is being brought before the DRB to decide and evaluate based on their DRB decision, reserving the right to inspect the lighting, whether or not it complies and conforms to the decision or not.
Gotcha. So do we have a sales receipt from the lighting contractor that proves that the lights installed are the ones that match the specification that they submitted to us?
We do not. I do believe that the compliance team has actively tried to confirm what was installed was what was approved, but I believe that someone from Whitney Park Center can confirm that or not.
Can anybody from Whitney Park speak to that?
We have a copy of the quote, and I could probably find a copy of the invoice, yes.
Because I do know the 3000 Kelvin was a special order on the light. So I guess that could be one thing that we'd want to verify to make sure that was in fact followed.
I believe that was submitted in with the packet. It was the quote, which was approved. And I can find a copy of the invoice.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just to make sure that the correct light that was approved was installed. I think is kind of what we're looking for from a documentation standpoint. me looking back at this, you know, just from a personal standpoint, I think, and it's something that we didn't really even question. This was the end of a really long meeting that we had. I was listening to the YouTube. It was at the very end. And I think what happened is that the existing lights were 25 feet. And we just assumed that going down to 16 feet was going to be, you know, adequate. And we didn't even really put any thought into the fact that this is a residential neighborhood and most residential's lights are around 10 feet. So is the contractor on? And I'm just curious of why they propose such a tall light, because I think that's leading to a lot of the issue of the glare that's going into people's bedrooms, is because these lights are 16 feet tall. I mean, that's, you know, you walk around a lot of all the resting clusters, and nobody has 16-foot tall lighting on their path, on their sidewalks and stuff. Is the contractor on tonight?
No, he's not. The light poles that were there were taller.
No, I understand that, ma'am. I said they were 25 feet. I'm saying I think it was a miss that it was a joint miss by the contractor, by the board. We didn't really see the height. I guess we didn't really question the height at all. You guys installed it per what the approval was, what you guys had submitted. I just was curious if had anybody thought about that, because I think that's leading to potentially a lot of the issue, because it's putting the light at the window level of everybody's bedrooms in the community, versus if it was 6 feet lower. I don't think you'd be having as many, I know you only have one complaint, but there clearly is an issue, because there's a bunch of these, in my opinion, really ugly shields
that have had a complaint about a certain light. They put a shield on that side and it's taking care of that. I mean, this one person, she asked about the light. The shield was put on, which now apparently she stayed in it too dark. It's too dark. We could see about a half shield or a different type of shield. We can certainly ask the contractor about that, if that would help her.
Yeah, because also the contractor, he mentioned in his email that he said that the frosted lenses are also making controlling glare very difficult. And I was curious to ask him what exactly, if you did a clear light or clear glass, would that substantially help? So it sounds like there could be potentially ways to rectify it. Once again, I don't really know what I'm approving, to be completely honest. I don't know if we're approving, if we're just discussing. I mean, Cam, what are you looking for us?
We are looking for the DRB to determine whether or not the lights comply and conform to the DRB decision, or if the DRB would like the lights to be reduced in whatever manner that they deem appropriate. So if it was too bright, then you all have the ability to regulate whether or not the applicant reduces the glare or reduces the lumens, depending on, or lumens or the kelvins, depending on the situation.
It seems to be that the first question is the one where you were going initially, Michael, which was, we don't have just factually confirmation that what was installed matches what was proposed and approved. So that to me is the first step, because without that, we're not in a situation to address whether we can remediate it in some ways, because we don't know whether it's something that's the problem with what was installed versus it is something that was approved and now is subject to the condition in the approval. So I would be inclined to defer pending the receipt of that confirmation of what was installed matches what was approved.
This is Jimmy Sayas. May I speak?
Yeah.
It's probably one of the newest members of the board. This was approved before me being here. And I did talk to Jeanette about before this meeting, I think it was a week ago or so, what we could do to address the new concern she has now. The first concern was it was too bright. So we addressed the post directly in front of her house. They put shields, and now it's too dark on the back. So internally, we've been discussing maybe just cut back that shield on the back to be only halfway, just enough to cover the top floor where the rooms are, and at least provide some lighting to her sidewalk, so it's not that dark. So that we've been discussing that. I agree that the invoice needs to be provided. I agree. That should be the first step. My concern that I have now moving forward is what's going to happen if it's proven that they were installed per the approval. What's going to happen moving forward if somebody else's complaint? Are we going to keep coming back to the DRB because per each complaint, or you know, I think it's going to be a little bit cumbersome, and it's a little bit of a burden economically, actually, if we need to keep coming back and employing the contractor again to address individual issues. I agree if there is more complaints on file, but so far only one official complaint has happened. And as I told Jeanette, they are always welcome to come to my house or the other houses around the neighborhood, the board members, and discuss this and let us know if we can address it somehow. We're actually willing to do it. But, you know, my worry is that, you know, are we going to keep coming back at it?
No, I think if we confirm, you know, with the sales receipt that what was installed was in fact what we approved, and we feel like it's, you know, we unfortunately we do put a caveat in our statement that basically says we have the right to basically change our minds once it's installed, which in the history of me being on here, it's never happened. This is the first time that it's ever come up. But once we see that sales receipt and we determine whether the lighting is adequate or meets what our intent was, then I don't believe, and Cam, you could correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe then if a new complaint was filed, let's say a year down the road, I don't believe at that point they would be allowed, you know, they wouldn't have to go through this whole situation again.
They would not have to go through the DRB again. That's correct.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Jimmy, you're on the right side of things, try to handle it all internally in your cluster, right?
Yes.
You know, sending a newsletter out, you know, letting people know, come to you guys first, because unfortunately, I think when they file a formal complaint, it kicks in this process, right? And if, you know, obviously if you guys deal with it internally, then you guys don't have to deal with us. And I think that's probably maybe what was meant to happen, and it just kind of maybe, you know, wasn't fully, you know, understood kind of what happened. But you know, we are where we are now. So I think what I'll do is, I believe, Bruce, you had a motion to defer on the table, which I will second, pending further documentation of proof of what was installed. And once you guys can give us that, then we can make a motion on the actual installment. Did anybody else on the board have any further discussion on that motion?
Do I send that receipt over to?
You'll submit it to whoever you've been working with staff. Okay. I'm not sure who you've been working with.
Michelle Rauhi, I think.
Right? Yeah, Michelle Rauhi.
Yeah. Anybody else on the DRB board? Do you have any comments?
Yeah.
And Karen, you have some?
I just have a question. I have a paragraph or long sentence that I saw somewhere in all of this, these correspondences, but that if in the opinion the lighting is too bright, the DRB may require that the wattage be lowered or shields be installed. To me, it's really bright, brighter than it should be. But the little kids can play basketball all night.
My observation would be if it is not what we improved, then it's one path. Because that's what we reserved to ourselves. If it is what we approved, and we still think it's bright, then to your point, Karen, then our responsibility is to address what I call the remediation, as you're suggesting. But
yeah,
I don't know what issue we have, wrong installation or what we approved is still too bright. Because in the first instance, you'd have to do a lot more change, it seems to me, than in the second situation.
So just to add to this, there is email communications confirming that what was approved was what was installed from the applicant. So food for thought.
What slide is that on?
Is slide 11. And Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the perspective is what was purchased was what was installed, and what was installed was what was approved.
Right. Where do you see? I just don't see where Jomar Electric confirms and says this is exact. We install. You know, I think still getting a sales receipt though is necessary, because I don't see anything in this email from Jomar that says, yes, we installed this exact model, you know, list the model with the Kelvin specifications. Because if you pull up like the spec sheet that's in the application, they could have ordered an array of options. And potentially, I'm not saying they did, potentially they could have picked one of those options. What slide is this? 31. This was provided as part of the original application though. So this wasn't a sales quote. This was just a proposal quote essentially.
Correct.
What slide is that? Sorry, I can't read that. 31.
31.
Yeah, and see, like this quote doesn't have the 3000 Kelvin on it. So I'd be curious to make sure that they actually did in fact order the one with the 3000 Kelvin, which potentially could help with, you know, the light pollution that may or may not be occurring. So I think the final sales receipt, because this is from 2019, this quote, if you look at the date on it, August 16th. So this was well before our approval in 2020. So
Michael, just to confirm, Jane, if you could go to page 9, the information that we're requesting on page 9 is what the DRB is looking for. Is that correct?
Yes. And I think those questions, those additional questions would be very helpful to be brought to the next meeting as well. And I'd see if Jomar Electric or the representative could be here so we could ask some of those questions directly to the person who installed them.
And I would modify the motion accordingly.
And I'll accept that modification. Is there any other further discussion? All right. So all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? All right. The motion passes. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I don't think we have any additional stuff today. I just wanted to ask one question. Cam, it's not really an agenda item, so I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it, but I had made a suggestion about kind of reworking some of the panels to maybe only doing 2 panels a month and then kind of have an alternate on call essentially. So we could have 3-panel member meeting, three-person panels to help alleviate some of the workload of the current 3-person panel. Did you guys talk about that internally at all and see if that was a feasibility moving forward?
We did, and we are trying to look for a commitment from some of the previous serving DRB members that would meet the quorum requirements, and we've even toyed with the idea of asking Michael or Karen to move to the second panel, which would have 2 panels that have quorum, but a third panel which would only have 1 member. And so the way we've set it up is the best way we can, given we don't have any solid commitments to have previous serving DRB members fulfill those needs. But if any DRB member is open and willing to reach out to prior serving DRB members to assist us, we are looking to see if that's an option as well. But we are open and willing to consider and do whatever we can to assist with the quorum requirements.
So theoretically, if Mike or Karen said, hey, I want to jump on the second Tuesday of the month's meetings, and then we basically just have one person on whatever, I don't know what color panel they are, let's say it's the green panel, then people could volunteer to hit that fourth panel. But would that would kind of leave you guys in a pickle if nobody volunteers for that fourth Tuesday. And you think we still need to keep the three panel meetings? There's no way to go down to two.
Well, yes, that's correct. The deed does require the setup, but in a great world, given the current situation, we do have some problems with our one panel that meets quorum, meeting quorum. So it would be helpful to try and reach out to previous serving DRB members to ask them specifically to serve on a specific date well enough in advance so that if there was a need for fulfilling the requirement or replacing a DRB member that maybe had conflict, we could do that well enough in advance to ensure that the quorum requirements were still met.
Okay. All right. Well, I can reach out to some people and see. We don't pay very much, so it's tough sell, but we'll figure something out maybe. I know that's what you've been doing, Cam, so I know you know the struggle.
Yes, very much so.
Okay. Well, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, staff.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you so much. Good night, everybody.
Great night. Enjoy the beautiful weather.